everybody, and welcome to a little bit more of a somber type live tonight. But I really wanted to bring Diane on here and talk about bereavement. I think it's a really important subject. And so we've got Diane James to join us from the Blue Cross. She actually runs a bereavement support line, which I massively favour. I always encourage it. My clients, I always send them a card from these guys to make sure that they know that there's someone they can talk to, and to know that pet loss, and I even hate using the word pet because they're more than that label to us. I really don't like that word at all. But you know, that's what we're supposed to say. So Diane has very kindly come on to help, and I'm hoping that it's going to help me too, because as most of you know, I've obviously recently suffered my loss and my bereavement, so this is something really close to my heart. I'm going to try and hold it together though, because nobody wants to see me crying, but if you guys need to, go ahead. We're not going to hear you, and please come and ask questions. So Diane, please introduce yourself.
Good evening. I hope my signal holds up. My name's Diane James, and I am privileged to lead the Pet Bereavement Support Service, which we provide free web chat, email and phone service and Facebook to anyone who suffered any type of loss of an animal. They're just not sadly bereavement as in death, but any loss. So it could be rehomed. You've had to separate, so who gets the pet then? It's been lost or stolen. We're there for anything like that.
Wow, actually that's a really good, I didn't even think about that. Didn't actually even occur to me, but I have to say one of my biggest fears has always been the pet theft thing, which is really obviously devastating because you don't even know what's gone on then. So that's really amazing to hear that you are here for those things as well. So thank you. So yeah, I mean, we want to just chat to you, and I have obviously already asked my clients, or well, anybody who wanted to sort of share some questions that they might have about their situation and how they're feeling, and what it's meant to them. And I'm obviously going to share my thoughts as well, because I don't think that my thoughts are unique in any way, shape, or form. But I think that I just want to start off with, you know, some of the things that have been brought in. I also just want to say that Anita has just jumped on and said thank you and shared some kisses with you. So thank you, Diane. So one of my clients asked about supporting friends through their grief, which I think is a really good question, because actually it's an awkward thing, isn't it? You feel like it's the elephant in the room. Some people don't know whether to talk about it, whether to not talk about it. And quite honestly, I know that for me, sometimes I'll break down in tears in front of somebody, and sometimes I can hold it together absolutely fine. So I don't know what that answer is, but I know personally I like people to ask, but I you know, I want them to be okay if I cry. So it's a really awkward one, isn't it? So how do we deal with that?
Do you know, everybody's different. The most important thing is to learn that however we're feeling is normal. Everybody will say they understand, but that's their own interpretation of grief. And in the same way, a lot of people won't understand because some people think it's just an animal, sadly, which we get quite often. But also, human beings tend to err away from facing things they don't feel comfortable with. So if it's discussing loss, whether it be death or terminally ill, often they'll cross the road, or they'll think by not making contact, they're helping you, because they think that's what you want. Whereas often we really want to talk about our loved ones that we've lost. You know, it's nothing more important to us to tell people about our love for our animals.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, you've literally hit all the nails on the head that have gone through my mind. You feel like you can't talk about it because it's just a pet and just an animal, but actually to us they're our absolute world. And I've said this to all my clients. I've been like, I feel so privileged with the work I do, because I just work with the most amazing owners, because they all just want to do the biggest thing they possibly can. I mean, you know, coming to physio is like the icing on the cake treatment, and you know, it's not the bare essentials. And so I'm in a really privileged position. So for me, I work with people who just love their animals to the nth degree, and so we all kind of get it. And I've had so much support from my clients, but you do still feel like, is it okay to say that to, you know, to other people who are outside of that world? And it's really reassuring hearing you sort of reiterate the fact that everybody says they understand, but they understand it differently because that's their interpretation of how they would feel in that situation. And I suppose also as your life evolves, things change. So you perhaps don't remember your grief that you might have gone through years ago in the same way anymore. And it, so complicated, isn't it?
Do you know it is? And grief has numerous names, and they always match. The word in front of grief always describes what it is. And when people don't understand, it's classed as disenfranchised grief. And lots of people like me, I mean, I've got 2 dogs. They are our world. They are part of our family. And then there's other people who will always say that it's only a dog. But you know something? It's until you've experienced it like we have, and you sadly loved and lost and still are able to love, there's no understanding like the loss that you go through. People often say you can't compare it to human loss, but I have to say to them, again, we're all different. It may be that was the only thing in your whole world, and you've just now it's died and you've lost it. Or it can even be, you know, it's a different love. When I lost my parents, it's a different way of losing, loving and grieving. However, when I lost my first dog, I was devastated. You know, and people say you can never compare it to a human being, but I always say you have to normalize. Everyone is different how we feel. Nothing wrong with how we grieve, how we feel, and how we love.
I definitely appreciate hearing that, because again, you do feel like you can't say that. You feel like you can't say, oh, it's like losing a child. But that, I know I've never been through that, and I feel like I have to validate it by saying that. But to me, the pain, the physical pain I went through that night, and then for days and days and days afterwards. And, I mean, I ran a marathon, and I hurt more that night than I did having run a whole day of running. The physical pain and then the emotional pain on top, that there is no comparison. Unbelievable. And, it's just horrendous. I'm just going to go over to some people's comments, because we've got a lot of people coming in and talking. I think it's really important to let everybody say what they want to. Susan, I'm so glad to have you on here, and it's, bless you. How do I help with the loss of my cat who passed 3 weeks ago? She's also said, I'm so lonely, please help me. And also, should I get another cat or wait a while?
Right, Susan, let's take that one stage at a time. First of all, it's a really new loss to you. Don't feel you're on your own. The best thing in the world is to, and this is not a plug for my Blue Cross team, is there are numerous ways. If you feel you can talk, you can ring and somebody will be there to listen and support you. If you can't talk, you can email or web chat. And another amazing site with a fantastic support for people, and it's all people supporting each other, is our Facebook page, which is closed. There's over 9,500 people who understand totally, Susan, what you're going through, and they really support each other, and you can form friendships in there over your loss. So never feel you're on your own. We are there in every way you need us, and we totally understand. And then, should I get another cat or wait? Do you know something? That's totally personal. Some people like to go out the next day, and everybody says, oh, it's so wrong, but it's the right thing for them. Other people can wait a long time till they feel ready. And sadly, some people never feel ready and don't. But it's what's right for you.
I'm just going to add the last comment that Susan also added, because I think it's important that we don't ignore what she's saying. I feel I want to die and be with him. I'm so depressed.
Right. So, Susan, because obviously we're in public at the minute, I can say to you, the line's open till 8:30, 0800 096 6606. Ring and there will be somebody there. If you feel that you can't cope, please ring the Samaritans. And this isn't, in any way, but please don't know, are not on your own. And how you're feeling, we often get this. Ring the Samaritan or contact your GP in the morning and speak to them. That I promise you, we've been working with the Royal College of GPs, and they really do understand pet bereavement now and the effect. You are not on your own, but please do get some support. Either ring us or the Samaritans, and we'll put you in touch with people.
Thank you so much. And thank you, Susan, for sharing, because, this is what this is here for. I'm so proud of you for coming on, having the strength to say that and share, because that's the point. Getting talking is going to help so much. And so, yeah, well done. And take that advice on board. There's people there for you. Well done. So Janice has also said, my dog is alive, but is 14 years and 7 months. He's a Labradoodle, and I don't know how I'm going to cope with the loss of him. I think I also want to say, I know her dog, he's wonderful, and I've spoken to them a lot. And I have to say that I also share that, in that I felt like a pre-grieving. I felt that for years, and it was closer and closer you get, you're so scared of it the whole time, and you fear that thing coming. So I completely understand. So yeah, this is a great question.
Do you know, Janice, this is a really common thing when we love, like we do, our pets and animals. It's what we call anticipatory grief, and we start to grieve even before we've lost them. So we start to lose out on the special times that we can have with them because we're worrying more about them going. And I do totally understand it, because I have 2 dogs, and my second dog is what I call my crossover dog, because my daughter totally nagged me. There was nothing wrong with my first dog, and he's still here 5 years later, but she was worried that he would need a friend and she would be on her own. So we have 2 dogs for that. So we have a little bit of a gap. However, your dog, 14 and a half years, a Labradoodle, and there is lots of things you can still do. And what I sometimes say to people is, we know, sadly, that all that die every living thing. So is put together a bucket list, things now to make memories. So you go on favourite walks, feed favourite foods, favourite places, take pictures, start putting together things like memory boxes, so that you're building memories that you can keep now, videoing things. I mean, you know, years ago we weren't fortunate enough that we could film so that we can have our memories. So enjoy the time you've got, because sadly we do know, and you will cope, because there'll be all of us there to help you and support you. But making memories now is one of the best things you can do. So definitely a bucket list, and focus on the here and now and the memories.
That's such good advice. And yeah, I mean, I again, I can relate. I feel like I was clever. I managed to work that out. I've actually spent quite a lot of time accumulating things, and putting those little memories together. I bought myself a few little like I bought a trinket, a hanger that was a silhouette of my dog. I had a friend do it, and she did an amazing job. And I bought a bead with some of my dog's fur in, all before he went, so they were a bit more positive than afterwards. And so yeah, and the memories and everything, that's yeah, it's amazing advice. And yeah, that's really lovely. I think that's some really good ideas there. So yeah, hopefully, Janice, I hope that can help you. Nicola has also said, it honestly, such an awful experience. It's been 3 months and I still cry about her. We need to normalize grieving our companion animals. I completely agree. And that's why I've got Diane on here and doing this so publicly, is because that's exactly what I thought. Is we're all saying the same things, and yet none of us talk about it openly. And it really is, it's so important, isn't it, Diane?
Gosh, do you know, 28 years the Pet Bereavement Support Service has been going. Not enough of us know we're here. And I'm a firm believer in, if we can get it right with our animals, it sets us up for later in life when we lose human beings as well. So if we get it right with our children and we normalise it, as a country, we're afraid of death and talking about death, whether it be human or animal. And it's really sad, because it's really important that people understand how we feel. I mean, we're never going to get through bereavement leave for pets, but if people can be more compassionate, understanding, and realise the effect it has on us, you know, it'd be a long way. But I have to say, we have been chipping away. I've been doing it for 8 years for Blue Cross, and we've moved on massively in that time. There's still a long way to go. But you know, so I mean, vet schools, it wasn't anything that was really covered within their educational streams. Now they get talked about pet bereavement. They talked about how to deal with clients and euthanasia, quality of life. So it is a really awful experience, Nicola. 3 months, you know, 3 months is not a long time. It's still, if you think of it in weeks, it's like 12 weeks. It's a really short amount of time. So you still crying, there is nothing wrong. We will always remember. And I tell people that we never forget, we never get over it. We just learn to live with it. And we'll have good days and bad days. And, you know, there can be things in the future that will just trigger you, but never be afraid. It's normal to be upset and grieve.
Yeah, that's it. I think the other thing from what you just saying that I wanted to sort of say was, the one thing I really notice as time passes, it is the emptiness. Like, that's what I find triggers me the most, is when there's a moment of time where I I feel like, well, I would have been doing this, I would have been doing that. And particularly you've got an older dog that are quite needy, you would have been taking them out for the toilet, picking them up, cleaning up after them, feeding them a sixth meal of the day, or that sense of empty is huge, isn't it?
It's huge, and it's huge in many ways, because it changes your whole socialization, your whole routine. So if you had a particularly young dog or an old dog that you had to care for, it's a total life changer. In the same way as if you used to go out daily and see people, you tend to see the same people. And I don't know about you, but people say hello who I've never met before because I'm a dog walker. So everything socially changes for you in your routine. And then the other problem you get is not only do you miss all that routine and you suddenly think, what can I fill my day with? When you start to do different things, you start to feel guilty. And that is a massive thing that comes with loss of an animal, more so than the human grief cycle, is the guilt. At all the stages that we have different types of guilt. If we sign the paperwork to have it euthanized, we're guilty. If we left it too long, we're guilty. And then we start to suddenly think about getting another animal, and I'm guilty because I'm thinking, and I'm not replacing in any way, but guilt is a massive part of what we go through when we love an animal.
It is, and actually I can massively relate to what you're saying there, in terms that you do feel different types of guilt, which seems weird, doesn't it? Because you don't think there even is different types of guilt, but you do feel different types of guilt for different things, because when you start to make plans for things that involve not having them, that's really hard to deal with. I mean, I must admit, we were starting to talk about holidays, and we've always holidayed with our dogs, and then now we've got one dog who's young enough to go and stay with parents, and so we're thinking, well, maybe it's time we can actually enjoy a holiday somewhere else for a change and actually have a bit of a break. And the guilt is huge, absolutely huge. And yeah, that's tough, isn't it? That is tough.
It is tough.
Yeah.
I get that on a day out. If we suddenly decide that our lives revolve around our pet, and if we think we'll leave them home for an hour, when we're out, we think, why do we leave them at home and come home and get them? And yet we felt guilty the whole time we were out. And then as soon as we're out with them, we feel guilty thinking, oh, we should have done something. So people just don't realize how much they consume your life when they're here and when they leave us.
Totally. Totally.
Tell you what else I wanted to... Sorry.
Oh, no. Go for it, and then I'll carry on.
I'm going to show you something quick I put by my side. It's staring at me. When we were talking about making memories, there's something as well about afterwards. There's lots of ways memorializing. And one thing is, and this can be made out of your dog's blanket, cat's blanket, anything at all. Ooh.
Oh, lovely.
So, there's lots of, believe me, I didn't make it. But it's always there. And, and you can cuddle, and the only thing that does go, sadly, are the smells, because as time goes, but little things anything that can help us, because we never forget, we can do.
I must admit, I went on retail therapy for the week afterwards. It gave me something to do. And it didn't necessarily have to be expensive, but it was me just like buying various things, because it just kept me occupied writing a little plaque and, for the plant pot. And so many people gave me so many lovely things. And it was actually quite amazing, like how much variety of things there are out there that you can get of all different. I got a necklace which had the tiniest little photo of my dog in it that you could project onto the wall with the light from your phone. Unbelievable. Someone gave me a 3D printed piece of plastic that you put a light behind, and the photo of my dog was in it. Unbelievable. And I've got a Loganberry version. I've got stars. I've got, oh my God, it's been so incredible. And so it's been really nice having all these ways of remembering are absolutely lovely. Anita, who's been one of my big supporters and really big help. So she's the one who I was just going to say that she's just posted that she lost her girl last May and she still cries most days. And she was just sharing that you're not alone, to Sarah and anybody else who's listening that will be in the same boat, and obviously sharing with Susan, who's obviously feeling the same. Susan also has said thank you, which I'm very grateful of, because it's a very positive thing there, Susan. But she also said that my husband says I should get a grip and pull myself together. I think that's important to share, because I suspect that that's not the first person to hear that either, is it?
Sadly it's not. Sometimes you have to think to yourself, that's the way people are conditioned to think and react to any emotion. But also sometimes it can be that they are also missing and are afraid to show their emotions and say how they feel. It's easy to say that you should get a grip. It's easy for them to say that because it makes it easier to deal with, because they're not sure how to handle your emotion. So you don't have to get a grip and pull yourself together, Susan, because you are going through something that's totally normal. So that's where often in lots of families or partnerships, if you haven't got anyone that you can understand or you don't want to talk to, we're all here, all of us.
Amazing. She also did share that she cries like a baby. I want to add, so did I, and I still do. So, again, you freely cry however you want to, I think is what anyone would say there, right?
And do you know something on that as well? Some people can't cry. So I used to be able to cry at cartoons that made me sad. Now a bit desensitized, because it's important that the person I'm with or talking to doesn't think. But showing emotion, nothing wrong. But some people really struggle to show it.
Oh, bless. That is interesting. That must be quite hard on them as well, because I expect they feel guilty about that scenario. That's tough, isn't it? So Anita has also come on and said, I'm a dog walker and I have been doing dog walking for 12 years. Many of the dogs we walk now we've had since puppies, and these are my daytime foster dogs and I love them like my own. In the last 12 months, we've lost so many over Rainbow Bridge. Any advice on how to deal with this?
Gosh, Anita, I hate to label things, but it's almost a bit like compassion fatigue, because it's hard enough when you have one, but when you're dealing with things day in, day out, and it's your job, people sometimes think that you'll find it easier when in fact you don't, because you brought them up all those years. And it's like a lot of occupations, vet nurses, rehoming, they go through this as well. Best way to deal with it is, again, if you know how you're feeling, make sure that the owner realizes as well how you feel. And something that you can do, and in the future, if you wanted to, is I know people do take like pup prints, so that as they're older and they go on, they've got memories of them that they're left behind. So that even though it isn't your animal in the sense of you're not the owner, but it is in your heart, you can keep those memories, pictures, the same as you would for your own dog. But I have to say to you, the best thing in the world is it's easy for me to say self-care and being able to, look after yourself, but that is really important. But again, it's just one of those things where by talking to people, it's difficult, because I can't say to you that it's easy to do and easy to get over. It's not, because you do have them for a long time. And 12 years as a puppy walker, whoa. You've probably been there from start to finish many of those dogs' lives.
Yeah, that's a big thing. Definitely. Thank you for that, Anita. I just want to also say another question that came in privately last night was, which I think is a really good question, was about dealing with blame. Because, sometimes we, lose our dogs and there is potentially some blame there, or you find blame even when that necessarily isn't necessarily justified entirely, but you certainly feel it either way. And obviously sometimes there is genuinely going to be blame as well, like things that could have been done differently. How do you deal with that if that's in your head, because obviously that's a very negative emotion, but obviously still valid?
Do you know, without getting too technical, the grief cycle actually talks about blame being part of grief, because sometimes it's, again, can be part of our denial or our grief or our guilt that we're feeling. So, for example, we can blame others who've dealt with the treatment. We can blame ourselves. We can blame other people in the family. An example being somebody left the door out and they parked the car in a different place and the dog ran out and had to cross the road and sadly got hit. So the person who opened the door blames himself. The person who parks the car in a different place blames himself, because all of us feel that we've contributed to that loss. And it is a human, part of human nature to apportion blame. And that sometimes we see, sadly, I'm not saying it doesn't happen, but when a vet treats an animal, often they'll get a complaint, because when we hear the treatment or what's going to happen, we never expected our animal to go in and not come out. We think they didn't tell us enough. But actually, some of this, because we only hear what we want to hear at times. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's a defense mechanism we have. So then we start to look for answers. So the best way to do in any case of is to, if you do blame, is to reason it out, discuss it. If it's a professional person, write, ask questions, nothing wrong with that. But remember that it is something that we all tend to do, human and animal. We all often look for, even blaming ourselves, that we could have done more, could have taken them earlier for treatment, if we'd locked the gate, lots of things. And that's just how our minds tend to whir over and focus on things.
Yeah, that is interesting. We're all in that same boat and you don't even realise it.
Right.
Yeah. So Janice says, thank you. So again, you're getting a lot of love here, Diane. Thank you. MDH, I think I remember actually. She says, hello again from California. I joined your live stream several months ago when I lost my beloved cat of nearly 16 years during the pandemic. Hi, MD. I do think I remember you and what you'd said. So I have grieved terribly since then. I've no doubt. I hope that it's feeling a bit better at this stage. She's also said, however, my daughter gifted me last year a young female, I'm assuming that is. So that's lovely. I'm so pleased that you've got something to make you feel happy. That's so lovely. Sorry, you were going to say something?
No, I was just going to say the pandemic caused a lot more. Normally where we could normalise and we could work with grief, there were so many things that added to it. And I don't just mean sort of us being poorly. I just think the way vets were able to work, the way we were able to go out and memorialise. So, you know, a lot of people still never really have celebrated or memorialised their losses, human and animal, I've got to say.
Do you know, I have to say, I completely agree. I was so scared that he was going to go during that pandemic. That was the worst for me, was that because when they're older, you just, you know, you're always worrying about it anyway. And then when you started hearing all these stories about all that stuff, I was like, please don't go now. Please don't go now. And it was just exhausting, absolutely exhausting. In fact, actually, it's probably another thing that's worth discussing. I mean, the exhaustion you feel is absolutely phenomenal, and that's probably something else that people probably need to forgive themselves for, because you feel like you're supposed to still keep going, you still keep running at your normal pace, and you physically can't do it. It's just exhausting, isn't it?
No, emotionally and physically draining. You know, we all, again, like we all grieve differently, are ways as well that our body affects. Some people can't sleep, some can't eat, some overeat. You know, the headaches, not being able to do normal things, wanting to stay in. Everybody deals with it differently, but it is absolutely draining, because if you've dealt with something that you've had to work with, treat with, and look after for in the run up, and then it dies, it's devastating. Just as not knowing and it dying quickly. You know, I can't even say to you that there's a saving grace on either, because there's not. But it is absolutely draining mentally and physically. And I often say it's really easy for people to say, you know, you need to get 7 hours sleep and you need to do this. And so different when you're there, so different. You know, absolutely mentally shattered. And sometimes you fall asleep because you're so tired, but it's not a good sleep.
Yeah, I definitely went through literally all of those boxes, by the way. Eat too much, eat too little, all of it. You know, but it's all waves. It's all waves, isn't it? You know, one day you're sort of at A, and then the next day you're at a totally different place, and it is bizarre. It's definitely not a straight line, is it?
Roller coaster emotions. And I mean,
really?
years ago I went to uni, they used to talk about it was like being in a rowing boat, and some days you're up and down, and other days you're just going around in circles paddling, and it is so true.
I think that makes a lot of sense. So Marcel has said, my first dog passed away in May 2013, and not a day goes by I don't think of him. I now have 3 other dogs, but it hasn't changed. I still think of him every day. He was so special. I think also that's exactly where I can see this going with me, because you feel guilty about that as well, because you feel like you should love them all the same. But they're not the same with you, are they? So like the relationship is just different with some dogs, isn't it? Like, yeah.
Do you know, it is. And I have to say that a lot of people will understand on here, you do get a special relationship sometimes with one of your animals, more so than anything you've ever had, and remember them more so. But the love that you have for the others might not, it'll just be a different love. And they
Yeah.
will love you in the same way that you love them, because they'll have no understanding. But I've got my two. The one is just so full of love and wants to please me all the time, whereas the other one is just quite happy to sleep and hoover up the floor. But I get it, and I get that they're both different, and I love them, but they love me in different ways. But I do get it myself. Do not feel guilty, and there isn't a day when you won't think of him. And the other thing as well, and this is going to sound terrible, the days that we start to not think isn't because we've forgotten, and then we start to feel guilty because we didn't worry about them or think about them that day. So it is a real vicious circle when we grieve and lose things we love.
It is. That's actually another point that I was thinking about, was the fact that you worry about forgetting. I certainly know my husband does that. He worries about forgetting a lot, actually, and he writes memories down now to make sure that he doesn't feel like he's forgetting. But that's his biggest worry, for sure.
Yeah, do you know something? Journaling is good for numerous things. One for memories. Another one is it helps, when we've got so much going on in our heads. Writing things down is really good. Also at night, if you find you wake up, I used to write things down that I was thinking about, and then when I woke up, I could never read it because I just scrawled. But it really helps me to clear my mind. But definitely keeping a journal of memories, and you'd be surprised that pictures and things pop up that you've forgotten about. And getting copies of those or keeping them is a really good way. The worry of forgetting, and it's strange, we never do, but we worry about it. But strangely, we don't, but it's still a worry.
It is funny, actually, because I think what I'm acknowledging more at the moment is that things that trigger memories, I'm now acknowledging how, like, whoa, I've remembered that. Whereas I would have still remembered that before, but it would have just been a fleeting thing because my boy's also still making new memories. But now they're so much more precious because I know there is no more new ones. And then I think that sort of ends up on a double-edged sword. I love that memory, but I also worry that why didn't I remember that up until that moment, But it's silly, really, because you can't remember everything all the time. So I guess that's grief for you, isn't it? It isn't necessary. It's not rational.
It's not. And trigger out things will crop up an awful lot. Smells, walks, sights, memories of you've been there and you forgot you went there. Sometimes you forget that you open a drawer and you've forgotten something is in there you put. Things that you just think, what, that is a really daft thing, but it triggers sometimes good, sometimes sad memories. But I always think of it, no matter what, it's a memory, and I'm glad I had it.
Totally. Yeah, I completely agree. Got some hilarious, disgusting memories, but I still love them. So MD has also said, a female tabby. I still grieve often, but this youngster has given me a new outlook on life instead of depression daily. I think that's lovely. And I think, that's going to resonate with other people like Susan, who's already spoken as well. So that's really lovely. Thank you for sharing that. Laura has said, I lost my old girl at the end of November. I now need to take my younger dog to the vets. My last visit was when my old girl was put to sleep. Any tips on how to get back through the vet's door? I'm dreading it. Oh, I hear you. That's also my dread. I haven't done it yet either.
And you know something? And this isn't to encourage you to change vets by any means, but sometimes why people leave a vet when they're a really good vet that they got on well because of the environment.
I heard that.
Do, a couple of things. You can ring up your vets, and if they've got more than one room, hope that ask if you can be in a different room. Same as you can stay outside almost until your appointment time, so you're not sat there in the waiting room dwelling on memories and looking at things, because that is difficult as well. They will be really understanding. And if you say to them that that you're going to wait outside, and if they could give you a shout, they will. And the same as if they can give you a different room. And I have to say, it won't be till you walk out of there and you're walking out of there with your new young dog that you'll think, I can do this. But it's that first time you go back. And it will, and I can't say to you won't totally lose those thoughts, because sadly you don't, because it's in your memory. However, they will help you as much as they can if you tell them how you're feeling.
I think that's excellent advice. And when I had to pay the vet bill, I actually made my husband do it. I couldn't even ring them up. So you've done better than me, Laura, because I couldn't have even booked the appointment yet. But I did meet up with the vet outside of the work of the vets, and that kind of helped. But obviously that was a situation I was able to do. But in case this helps, this was my plan. Was I was going to do a thank you hamper and take that in at some point. If they're watching, they know that now, so it won't be a surprise anymore. But I felt like then it would be a positive thing, because I want to say thank you anyway. And then I thought that's me just going in the door, doing something positive, and then leaving, and completely animal free. So I hope that would break it for me. So,
Laura, if it helps you, I have that same feeling with hospitals where I've lost people I loved in a hospital. It is exactly the same going back in. And I do totally get you. Vets and hospitals have that for me. We're all normal, but you can do it.
Yes, thank you. So MD has just said that our screen's gone black. I hope that everybody's not having any problems technically, because I can't see that there's any problem here. So MD, I don't know if you're still able to hear, but I might be an off and on again thing. I'm not a technical person. If anybody else has any trouble, let me know. But I don't think so. Sorry. So Paula has said, you never stop feeling guilty, but loving your pet while they're here, giving them the best life, should be a positive you take out of it. And getting another pet isn't replacing them. It's about grieving another pet. About giving another pet the best life, especially a rescue who hasn't had a good start. Yeah. I think you've hit it. Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Blue Cross, it's an animal rescue. One of my two dogs is a rescue, and he is the one that's most loving. And I think that he realizes that he has come somewhere that loves him, and that he is a totally different person and personality and everything. So you are right. You don't stop feeling guilty, but it's a new everything, new personality, new being, new everything you bring in your life. And I'm all for rescue. I think there's loads of them out there and they need love. My aim is to retire and have hundreds of animals, but my husband won't let me.
This next comment is going to make you laugh then, because Paula, by the way, is one of the most sensible, head screwed on people you'll ever meet. And this is what she said. And if my husband told me to get a grip, he'd have to go. I have to say, I think that most people here would probably be thinking the same thing. My husband wouldn't dare say that to me.
I'm with you, Paula. But you know something? I think my husband loves the dog more than me, but I can handle that.
I think we all handle that. My husband definitely knows that that's his rank in order. He knows that. I probably have to accept it too, but it's fine. It's just it's the done deal, isn't it? The furries come first. So Karen Hendry says, thank you, ladies. I lost my beautiful boy just before Christmas. It's a huge gaping hole that his passing has left that I'm struggling with. Time is a great healer. I know this, but the heartbreak is just so tough. Completely.
God, I have to say, right, and this is going to be terrible. When I read that people tell me that it's been X amount of time and it's great, and you get this. Sometimes all the time in the world just means that we can live with it, but it hasn't made our heart any better. And I do get that. And it's a bit like people, the question is, I often get, how long will my partner grieve for? Or how long will it take them to get over it? Do you know something? Sometimes people never do. And other people, it's as long as it takes.
Yeah, I think that's definitely what I'm hearing from you, is that, ultimately we're all different, and we all know we're all different. That's what we're all saying all the time in every warp of life, isn't it? Let's accept our diversity, and grief isn't the same. So it's been a great chat, I have to say. Shauna has also said, I lost Ella, my 5-year-old Staffy, 8 years ago. I still cry frequently about her. I never thought I would get through the grief. I just used to sit outside my house for hours crying by my car. I couldn't go into the house because Ella wasn't there. Blue Cross time celebrating in the memories and realizing how lucky I was to have my Ella help me heal. Thank you. So Blue Cross, you helped already. That's amazing. Shauna, thank you so much for sharing that as well, because I have to say, getting back in the house, luckily for me, this time with my dog, we did it all at home. So I was in the house already, but I will never forget the day it happened with my last dog. And I wasn't in the house. We did that dreaded visit. And I got back to the house and I couldn't get in. Every time I tried to get back in the back door of my house, I cried my eyes out. It hurt so much. I ended up down the bottom of the garden. I had to just go to pee down the garden as well because I literally couldn't get in the house. And then my dad kept bringing me up cups of tea. Probably wasn't helping the situation, but it took me all day until night before I could get the courage to go back in the house. And that was just that one day. So, you know, I've been there. I totally understand that. And it's so hard, isn't it? So, I mean, yeah, luckily I pulled it off in the end. But yeah, Diane.
And you know something I have to say as well, and thank you for that, Shauna, because it's the thing that every single one of, you'll be amazed to hear there's 155 volunteers based around the UK who man our service. They've all loved and lost. They're all well trained, and they are an absolute pleasure. And I'm in awe of every single one of them because they give all their time for nothing, and they're there to support people who, like them, have loved and lost. And I can't say enough that, you know, their home base is a phenomenal role and they are special people. And I just think anybody who loves like we all do, we are all special people to experience unconditional love of our animals.
Thank you. That's amazing. I'm just going to interject and with the stuff coming in, there's loads coming in. So thank you so much, guys. So we will go back to that. But I just wanted to also make sure I'd asked about children and supporting children through their loss, because obviously it's really, you know, we're talking a lot about dealing with ourselves. We talked earlier about supporting other friends, but children have got to be, they're hard because they're also different as well, aren't they? I mean, I think my child's dealt with it surprisingly well, but I wasn't expecting that at all. So I can't imagine that they're all like that. So yeah, any tips?
There are, you know, something, we don't give them the credit and the resilience that they actually have, because how we feel and we fear is sometimes they are, you know, so much stronger than we think. Dependent on age, and obviously it goes from very young right through to teens, they can react differently. But the most important thing is honesty, truthfulness in telling them and answering their questions, because they will have, you know, often if they want to be involved, if it's euthanized and you know you're okay with them being there because they've asked, seeing that end and communicating it, just explaining to them as well. Often you don't want them to feel they're to blame in any way. So how you know, total honesty and showing your emotion. As a mum, I always used to think if I was big, strong and didn't show it, it was more helpful. Whereas in point of fact, it's not, because they need to know, our children, that it's good to have emotion. It's good to be upset. One you'll often hear is not using words such as put to sleep, because again, children won't understand that it's mean euthanasia. They'll just think if they're put to sleep, they won't wake up again. So there's little tips like that. Honesty, not fibbing. Gone to the farm was a famous one. You know, they've gone to live or they run away with a circus when I was little. Thankfully now you don't have animals in circuses, but you know, people did it for kindness. And I have to tell you as well, I made this mistake as a mum. I went and got another goldfish because she's going to kill me for this, had fed her goldfish Smarties and crisps and obviously died. But so she then thought that I could bring them back to life. So totally the wrong move. But you sometimes think you're doing the best thing for your children. But honesty, talking to them, letting them grieve. Teenagers tend to go a bit introvert, so be careful of that, but make sure again they're involved. Memory boxes, the ceremony, every stage you can, because I'm a firm believer, getting, like I said earlier, get that right with them. Books, lots of books out there, but again, and I'll bring this in and I often touch on it, how we deal with it is we're impartial about anything to do with religion or beliefs unless it's brought in by the person who contacts us. Because again, we have to be aware that, you know, some people don't have the same way of thinking that others do. So even something like Rainbow Bridge, which some of you have heard of, we only work with it if it's introduced by the person who contacts us. Not because we don't believe or not because, but because we're impartial. And that's the way, if anybody works with others, it's important to understand they may have a different belief to you. So whatever you're going to tell their child, it's important that they're happy for them to know it.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's confusing for us all anyway, isn't it? Because we all, I think, I mean, I certainly have like lots of thoughts in my head and I want to believe all the nice ones. And so, you know, it is confusing for us as an adult. So to put that across to a child is hard as well. And I mean, I found that my child was very matter of fact, like unbelievably, like I wish I could live in the moment as much as she did. So she was there, she chose to be. I did give her the choice. I explained how it was going to be, and she had that choice, and that was the choice she made. And so I'm glad that that was the choice that we did. But you know, it was very much about choices. And then she cried, but then she was over it, and she went to a party that evening. And I didn't tell her she had to, but I didn't want her to feel punished, like she was going to miss, because at the friend's party, that's why they talked about school, and so I didn't want her to feel like she had to miss it because of me. So I had organised already for a friend to come and get her and look after her when I trusted, so she could come home, do whatever she needed to do. But then she stayed at the party the whole time, and she seemed absolutely fine. And then Mel Wade came, because we did a ceremony the next day, and you know, and then she went through that all with. There was no way I was going to be able to hold any emotion back. She saw a lot. That wasn't going to happen. So that was fine. But on Monday, she went back to school. I had said to the school that I didn't think that she was going to be in school, and they were fine with that. But actually Monday come, and she was actually doing really well. And so I said to her, do you want to go back to school? Because obviously friends are important at that age, well, any age. So she said, yeah, I want to go to school. So I was like, okay, fine. So she did. And then they have this emotional check-in where they put their name into different colour pots for what their emotions are. And she said, well, it was a bit awkward. Because I said, well, what did you pick? And she said, well, it was a bit awkward because I didn't really know what to pick. I said, well, what do you mean? She said, well, I thought I should put it in blue for sad, but I wasn't really sad at that moment. I was sad when I think about it, but I'm not sad all the time. And so I put it in blue anyway. And then the teacher came and spoke to me. So she did all that, and I think she just had so much grasp on it all. It was untrue, because I thought, it's exactly right, isn't it? It's when that moment comes up, it hits us, and then you have to process. But actually, the rest of the time, she's fine. And so that's why I say I think she's doing okay, because she most of the time absolutely is. But she's written a few. She wrote to Santa asking for him back, which broke my heart. But it's what you know.
All credit to you, because that's, believe it or not, it's how you've instilled into her. So how you are as a mum or as a parent, that is how her values are. But often, and again, I introduce this, if you're not so fortunate to have a child that deals as well, it's important, like you did, communicate with teachers or anybody that can let you know how they are, how they're feeling. And also, sometimes if you get children that can't show their feelings for whatever reason, another good way, and I often say to people, is either they write, or if they can't, you write the last things they ever wanted to pass on, messages, things they didn't get to say. And that's a really good way for them to get it out and how they're feeling. This isn't good for the environment, but what we then say is if you burn it and let the smoke rise up to heaven, you're sending that message they didn't get that chance to say. And that will work with lots of children who can't express emotion.
That's a good idea. Yeah, that's lovely. That is lovely. Oh, that's lovely. Thank you so much. I'll go back to our millions of people that are sending in such lovely messages now as well. So thank you, everybody, for joining in. I really appreciate that, because it's just showing what everybody's thinking. So Catherine has said, we lost our beautiful German Shepherd, Anya, almost 2 years ago now. Donna helped us keep her fit, healthy and comfortable, so we thank you. Oh, you're welcome. Anya was lovely. We weren't expecting to lose her as young as we did. It was quick and we weren't prepared. I am okay some days, but today I have been really struggling and miss her.
But, Catherine, that is totally understandable. And I think when we think of everything, we feel robbed, is the best way I can call it, robbed of all that love and life for both them and ourselves. So do you know something? And for you to be feeling like it, and you are going to have good and bad days, but it's that, it's so unfair, and that's how you feel about the loss of that life. And thank you to Donna for keeping her fit and healthy and comfortable, because that would have made a massive amount of difference to all of you.
Yeah. Oh, bless. Yeah, that's so true. That's so true. But yeah, robbed is definitely a good word for it, isn't it? I think that's definitely going to keep that one, because that's so true. So Anita is reminiscing on Ella. She obviously knows her. So a lovely Ella. She was so much fun. I still remember her first walk with her. So Lovely. That's lovely. And Anita is sending hugs.
Oh.
And I think there's now some communication going as Shauna says, Anita, she did love her Auntie Anita. Good. There you go. I'm loving seeing the love on here. Laura said, I should add my younger dog needs to go for a routine appointment. Oh, good. Well, thank you for telling us, Laura. Now we definitely don't have to worry, and you don't have to worry either. So, but I have no doubt that that's still an element of worry and doubt and niggle in your mind. Because I think there always is, even with a routine appointment, isn't there? So bless. Catherine has said that she's all okay, which is good. And Susan, oh good, you can see me fine. Oh good, thank you so much for letting me know. Laura's saying thank you. And Susan has said, you sound lovely, kind ladies. Thank you. You are so welcome. You're welcome. I'm glad we do. This is a really important subject, so it's really nice to make sure that we've got across this, how much love there is for these situations. That's definitely what I'm feeling. I'm trying really hard to keep breathing because my nose is now completely bunged up for anyone who can hear that. So, but I'm just going to make sure that because I did write down some of my thoughts that I just wanted to make sure that we talked about, but I actually think we've probably got most of it. I am going to say as well, it's really important to make sure that you think about your health throughout all of this, because actually one thing I really noticed was dehydration. When I was crying this much, unbelievably dehydrated, I could really tell. I won't go into detail how, but I could really tell. And so I just thought I should probably say how important it is to look after yourself, because I think you're the last person you think about, aren't you? Especially if you've got a family, you're thinking about everybody else in that family as well. So yeah, Diane, did you have anything to add to that?
When you wrote the word dehydration on my email, I thought, oh, that's the first time I've seen that one, but it does. It fits with everything you've said. Self-care is vital. And like I said, don't worry when people say 7 hours sleep. If you just want, and a cat nap's not a good word, but if you just want to take short little naps and you just make sure you're drinking and you're getting something in you that, you're okay to eat with to keep you going.
I went through so much tea. I felt so British. My husband was just like, are you all right? Do you want anything? I was like, tea. I need more tea. I need more tea. I've never asked so much tea in all my life. And he said, you sure you should drink this much tea? I said, but it was okay. It was just green tea. So it was like just a bit of flavoured water, basically. But I don't think I'm ever going to forget how much tea I went through. So yeah, it was quite unbelievable. But yeah, I think we've covered everything. Diane, did you have anything else that you wanted to add that you could think of?
The only other, there's a couple of things, and we sort of dealt with friends, ourselves, and children, is older owners. And it's really important that we sometimes forget that for older people, it can be their only companion, or it can be their last link to somebody they loved and lost before. And they lose their animal as well. It compounds the grief of having lost somebody that they loved before, because it's their link. And what I will say to people is never fear. As long as you've got some reasonable health, you can own an animal, because a lot of us fear as we get older that we're going to go before it'll be left. But lots of charities, ours included, have schemes where they will take care of it. So never ever think you cannot be without the love of an animal, because there are people to walk your dogs. There are people like us who will rehome them sadly if you go. Just do not think you can't have that joy. Because we see it all too often. And it's a bit like pets in care homes, been fighting for a long time. And I know you can't all have pets in care homes, but the fact that people realise how much an animal the difference it makes to your life and your well-being, your mental health, your love, your reason to, go on.
I have to say, there's going to be so many people hearing that will be amazed and so happy, because that is something that people do repeatedly say to me, actually. So that is really reassuring to hear, because you're right, it is some people's total reason for being, isn't it? And you're completely right about the link to their partners and things, because again, I hear that all the time. I've got to look after this one, he was my husband's dog. And that happens so often. So yeah, that's a really good point. So I'm really glad you raised that. So yeah, thank you for that. And yeah, at that point, it does become your entire world as well. So it does become even more your absolute focus. And then, you know, you've got to be compassionate about what they notice as well in there, because they could be much more noticing things and stuff like that. So yeah, that's really interesting. Another thought as well is moving their stuff. And you know, is there any tips for sort of dealing with that side of things? Because I know that, I mean, I've still got even his rubber booties he was wearing. I mean, they're a mess. They're covered in mud. They're disgusting, and I don't want to get rid of them. So that feels like, you know, a step I can't take. Is there any tips for that?
You know, you, if and when you're ever ready to, you will. If you're not, that's where the old memory box comes in, and everything that really means something to you that can go in there, and you can time and time again look at them. And this is going to sound terrible, but I've had people who years after haven't been able to move the litter tray. Please note it's clean, but they still left it in place, or the dog bed. But for them, it's right. I would say you haven't got to get rid of anything you don't want to, but storing it somewhere where you can look at it and you can keep it. Nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, that's very wise. It's a good idea, that memory box thing, isn't it? I've got so many. I just, at the moment, for me, they've still got to be on display. I've still just got to know where they are. They're not even on display; they're just where they lived. So yeah, that is really good. That is really helpful. Right, I'm just going to go back to our lovely people. So Wagabonds has said, thank you. She said, thank you for giving up your Friday evening to help so many. You're so welcome. And yes, thank you, Diane.
No,
it's very important. And look, Paula says, you're doing really well, Donna. I couldn't speak about Bandit for 3 years after I lost him. I wish you had met him. He was perfect. Oh, bless. I wish I had too, but I can well believe it, because Lily is amazing. So if Bandit was anything to do with you, I'm sure that is true. And Susan says, I did not eat for 4 days and I lost 6 pounds in weight. Yeah, that's what I actually, do you know, the first time I did something, I made myself go to gymnastics, which is my happy place. And I felt actually really guilty about smiling and doing anything that was positive, because I felt like that was wrong. But I also knew that I needed to do it mentally. So I made myself go. And my friend said a comment about weight. And I said, well, I've just had a massive crash diet, hadn't I? Because I was like, so I completely understand that. But actually, I think it's also worth, if Diane, if you've got anything else to say on the fact that did just remind me that I felt like I just couldn't do anything. I felt like naughty for doing that.
And you know, that famous word guilt comes in. Guilt that we laugh, that we enjoy, that we have routine back, and doing things. But we have to do that. You have to do it for your own well-being and those others that you love. You know, the only way I can ever say it is the world doesn't stop spinning and you can't get off it. And you have to stay on it and you have to partake. And I totally get you, Susan. And I really hope that if you do need anything, you know, you will reach out, because there's lots of us out here to support you.
Yes, definitely. Paula says, I also lost my cat, Lily. Lost my cat. Lily was really depressed. They were really close. Oh, so yeah, so actually that's probably a good thing to talk about quickly, actually, is the other pets in this loss. Because obviously that's actually, they've got to cope too. Have you got any tips for other dogs or cats or anything that have got to cope with the losses?
You can. There are a few. If you're in, well, it's not a fortunate position, but if you're in a position to know that if you've got a couple of dogs and one sadly is ill, and you know you've got a bit of time, is separate feeding times. Start to change the routine, so that where they used to get fed together or they walk together, you start doing things differently, so that they start to disassociate, which is horrendous, but it will help. Then when, for example, you come back, try and take them out of the routine that they used to, different walks and different things. If you can remove them from the environment for a little bit, if you were in a fortunate position to, that helps. And another one, and everybody's not in this position, but if you are able and you have your pet euthanasia at home, letting the other animals see it can help them, because they can pick up on it. Cats are stronger breed. Sometimes they, you know, will cope without other animals and they'll have their own way. But for example, like with Lily and the cats, they do have a relationship, and it's just giving them that extra love, attention, and changing some of the routines. Watching out as well, you know, if they start to not eat so much or doing different things, but they will pick back up. But they do grieve. They really do.
Yeah, definitely. That's some really good advice there, actually, because yeah, I mean, I've heard some of that before, but not all of that. So the changing of routines and stuff is probably quite tough on the owner as well, but I think that does sound very sensible. So yeah, it's a really good idea. Thank you. Catherine has said, I work in a dog rehoming and it's been heartbreaking speaking to potential adopters during lockdown, desperately wanting to adopt a dog after losing their only companion. And we just haven't had enough suitable dogs to rehome them. Yeah, not a lot you can do about, I suppose.
You know, lockdown's got a lot of things to answer for, and we'll have for a while as we go in the future. And it is heartbreaking. Again, don't forget, what we do with our service is just not for when people have lost their dog and, you know, it's died. It's also in circumstances like this. If they're feeling anything at all, even people who work with animals who need us, you can ring. You know, and there are dogs now starting, sadly, because of what happened in the pandemic as well, with extra pups or extra dogs that people, you know, they are starting to reappear. So I would say to people, rescue before anything, because there's going to be a few of them out there needing good homes.
For sure. I mean, I'm definitely pro rescue. I've never had anything else. And Sarah is obviously also pro rescue because she's now saying, I mean, she's punting for a different rescue here, but rescue's rescue, right?
Yeah.
If you have concerns that they won't be able to walk or look after the pet long term, organisations like Cinnamon Trust are free and will look after them. So true. Thank you,
Cinnamon
Sarah.
Trust are wonderful, Sarah. I can't, you know, there's a lot of really good ones out there do amazing things. Cinnamon are really good.
Yeah, I've only ever heard good things about them, so that's amazing. And again, Catherine has just also said, especially the older people, which is so true.
Yeah.
And Susan has just said, thank you. I will give the Blue Cross a call. Good, Susan. I'm really glad because you're going to get through to people like Diane, obviously. So amazing.
Half an hour now till they shut, Susan, or they'll reopen at 8:30 in the morning. So they, you know, we're there as much as they can, 8:30 to 8:30 every day of the year. So please do give them a call. Sadly, it won't be me, but you will have a wonderful person on the end, I promise you.
Wonderful. So we're going to wrap this up now because we've had Diane's time for a long time. I'm just going to do this last one, which is Marcel says, we took our other dog to the vets with us when we had to put our old dog down. Vets will allow other dogs to attend the appointments too. He grieved for 2 weeks and he wouldn't eat. So it is normal.
You know, Marcel, and there's not enough research on it because I've looked into it. Like, I definitely think they do, because my pair now are like I call them the James boys, and they will be inseparable. But when one goes, I dread it.
Yeah, I mean, my dog's actually, again, I think he's coped really, really well, but he had that opportunity to say goodbye and stuff. And we had not tried to separate them. I hadn't done that intentionally, but it kind of naturally happened anyway, because we were doing various things with all of them. So I guess those things kind of help. But the thing I've noticed, which I sometimes like and sometimes upsets me, is that he started doing things that Logan did. And that kind of freaks me out a bit because he just would never have done it before, like eating carrot peelings. I mean, that was a trigger. Peeling a carrot. Who'd have cried their eyes out peeling a carrot? I did. And I was like, oh, and I always fed it to both dogs, but Swagger would never eat the carrot peelings ever. But when Logan went, he started eating them. I was like, why are you doing it now? And but you know, that was weird.
It gives him comfort, and it should you as well.
No, I didn't think of it like that. Wow. Well, now I'm going to cry even more now.
Don't worry.
God, that's really funny. It has been weird. There's been a few other things, and it has been very, very bizarre. Very bizarre. The first dog walk without 2 dogs was really hard. That I've never cried so much while walking a dog. I could barely see where I was going. I was lucky that my husband was following, doing the driving and getting us there. So lots more thank yous coming in. And Paula has also just said, Logan has sent you a message that he's out of pain, which is lovely. Yeah, I know that's so true. So thank you so much, everybody, for coming on and watching and being so involved and so proactive. I'm really glad I did this. I clearly this was all needed for me as well as for everybody else. I held it together. Woohoo! And thank you so much to Diane for joining us. I am going to put a link for donations for Batsy Dogs Home, so just so you know, that's there. And sorry, I said the wrong one. Oh my God, that's terrible. For Blue Cross, the right links on the event for Blue Cross. And I am really, really grateful for Blue Cross for coming on doing this, and for Diane. Your time has been so valuable, and thank you so much. I can't thank you enough.
Pleasure. Honestly, you're like a little family, because listening to you all, it is lovely, and I love all my animals like you do too, so welcome to the family.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, everybody. Goodbye.